2 years ago, I was on a mountain called Stoos in Switzerland, and I was not the only one. There were 21 people there discussing the state of management in the 21st century. And we concluded that things are a mess. It's a bit like my wardrobe. And fortunately, we have somebody to lead us out of there, not out of my wardrobe, but out of the mess, of course. And his name is Steve Denning, and he is the author of the book Radical Management, and he wrote the foreword for my little book, How to Change the World. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Jürgen.
Glad that you're here. Also, that you're joining.
Delighted to be with you, Jürgen.
Good. So you are one of the people behind the Stoos movement, as it is called by most people nowadays. Mm-hmm. And it all started 2 years ago. You and I and Peter Stevens and Frans Rosley together were the initiators, but many other people took over after that. How do you feel? How do you evaluate the last 2 years? I'm curious about that.
I'm amazed at how much progress we've made and how things have moved on. When we think back with you and I and Peter, we're having a drink in a bar in London in late 2011, and the three of us were saying, well, do you think if we actually called a meeting of people to deal with this mess of management, anyone would come? And we were uncertain whether anyone would come, and we invited a lot of people, and 21 people showed up. And I think we were also pleasantly surprised at how much common ground the 21 of us had. And we kind of set off on a journey together to see what the rest of the world will think. And I think as we left that meeting, if anyone had said that we would have a couple of thousand people all around the world pursuing these ideas within a year, most of us would have said, well, that's too ambitious. That's really quite unrealistic. But that's what's happened. And so in terms of mobilizing and connecting a lot of people together who share the same view of the problem and how to deal with the problem, I think the progress is absolutely astounding. And it's moved into a new phase, and we can talk about what that new phase would look like. But I think just a bottom line, from where we were, three guys sitting in a bar in London, to now having a couple of thousand people and a whole set of activities and movements going on around the world, I think it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. I remember that well. It was at the Scrum gathering, I believe, in London that we got together.
Right.
And do you think that some things have turned out differently, other than the size and the number of people involved? Do you think things changed or evolved in a different way than you had expected?
Well, they've evolved more excitingly and better than I expected.
Okay.
I mean, I'd been involved in a storytelling movement beginning around the year 2001, and that movement was based in Washington, D.C., and the core group there never really got beyond 30 or 40 people. But it lasted for 10 years and did, in fact, lead to a transformation of the view of storytelling within organizations, which in 2001 was regarded as some goofy, stupid thing that some strange people were talking about, to becoming now a centerpiece of business schools and the agenda of many large organizations. So I'd seen a movement before happen, but it had always been very small. So I was astounded that we had a couple of thousand people join this movement and over 20 satellites all around the world. This, compared to my previous experience in launching a movement, was just on a hugely different scale.
Right. So I have similar a history of inspiring small numbers of people. So maybe as we get older, Steve, we get more experienced at the gathering people around a purpose.
Well, maybe our ideas get better too.
that is very true. Maybe just the ideas are getting better. That's a good point. One of the ideas that you are involved in, or at least you write a lot about that, is the concept of the creative economy. I find that a fascinating term. Can you explain to me and other people what were the previous economies, so to speak, and how is the creative economy different from what went before?
Well, I see we currently have three economies going simultaneously. One is what I call the traditional economy, dominated by big firms, big hierarchical bureaucracies, trying to make money for themselves, maximizing shareholder value. That is still the largest economy, but its statistics show that it's becoming steadily less productive. There is a second economy, the financial economy, which is the traditional economy on steroids. It's focused on making money out of money, and it's become seriously disconnected from the real economy. It's making a lot of profits, but it is not benefiting society. It's benefiting a few firms and a few individuals who make extraordinary amounts of money, and it's distracting effort from actually having the real economy of goods and services being productive. And those two economies are being replaced by a rapidly growing creative economy, which is based not on making money for the company, but on delivering value for the customers, for the clients, for the people for whom the work is being done, and focused on real products and services. And because the balance of power has shifted from sellers to buyers, customers are now in charge, and the whole dynamic of this creative economy as delivering innovation for these customers, doing things which are delighting those customers by adding more value to what they're doing. And that's the dynamic of this new economy, based on continuous transformational innovation, delighting customers, and creating workspaces that are actually fun, that are actually good to work in. And also, happily, these, when done well, these firms are hugely profitable. As you can see from Apple or Amazon or firms that get into this mode, when they really find out what customers really want and need and deliver that on a continuous basis, they make extraordinary amounts of money. So it's still relatively a small part of the overall economy, but it's growing rapidly, and that is the future. That is the future of the economy, because the traditional economy is in decline and the financial economy is unproductive and needs to be successively reined in and refocused on the real economy. The future of the economy is, in fact, this creative economy.
Okay, that was great stuff. I'm totally aligned there, and I particularly like the references you made to delighted employees next to delighted customers.
Right.
One thing that is on my mind, in particular, helping people to enjoy their jobs and their workplaces more. I was in part inspired by your work with articles on the creative economy and the complex systems and networks. I have started coining the term the creative networker. I want to replace Peter Drucker's word, the knowledge worker, and I want people to be called the creative networkers in the creative economy. How do you feel about my term, Steve?
I love it.
Good. I was hoping for that.
I know. I think that captures the essence of what this new workplace is about. This is about people who are adding value, who are not just grinding along with what's been done before, but adding new value to that, and doing it not alone, not in some back room somewhere, some genius creating, but working together with other people. I mean, we are smarter than me, and recognition that if we pool our efforts, if we join forces, we can be much more creative than if we're simply alone. And of course, technology makes that so easy today. It's inevitable that this will happen.
Exactly. Okay. So I particularly like the joining forces part, which is exactly what we're doing now, Steve. So hopefully you will start writing about creative networkers, and I will refer more often to your work, and let things grow from there. You have an awesome amount of stuff on your Forbes blog. I'm sometimes amazed at the number of words you put out there. How do you do that?
Well, hopefully the quality is also amazing. But
it certainly is. It certainly is.
I mean, there's so much to say. There is so many things, so many areas that need to be rethought as this new economy emerges, and the old economies are becoming increasingly less productive. I'm observing those phenomena, observing the decline of the existing economy, and explaining how the pieces fit together. I mean, how if we put out the statistics showing that the rate of return on assets of firms has been declining, is now only a quarter of what it was, let's say 45 years ago. How do you reconcile that with the fact that you have record profits and the stock markets are at record highs? So explaining, well, that is actually a phenomenon of free money given by governments to stimulate the economy, which passes to large corporations who then, instead of actually doing very much with that money, are simply buying back their shares, and that pumps up the stock market. That isn't real prosperity. That is what I call Potemkin prosperity, where you have a kind of fake set of results that shield the public's view of what's really going on in the economy. So if you look at the real economy beneath these financial flim-flams, the picture is very stark. And when you go inside the corporations, you feel the desperation of executives who can see that the way of running their organization is becoming less and less effective. They are having to run faster and faster, and they're still falling further and further behind. And so that in that world of desperation, one needs to explain, well, there's a reason why this is happening. This is not the way things have to be. There is another way. People know how to do things differently, and documenting how these things fits together, there's really a lot going on. So I write about different aspects of it, and it's an exciting time to be looking at this world and going through a transition. If things were calm and stable, and that would be rather boring. This is exciting. And,
it is indeed an amazing time to be, and I agree there, Steve. And you do an awesome job describing the changing times. And I've noticed in order to be able to read, you have in order to be able to write, you have to read a lot, which is also what you've been doing. I see lots of references to books in your work. How many books do you read per year, actually?
I have no idea.
You're losing track of count, I'm sure.
Well, I read some books from start to finish several times. I read others a few pages, and I think, well, this book is not for me. So I wouldn't say there are 10,000 business books published each year, and I certainly don't read more than a fraction of them. And there are some that I missed. I'm actually writing quite a lot about books that were published 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, which have been missed. I mean, one, for instance, a book by Carlota Perez that I was writing about earlier this week. I mean, a brilliant book explaining how these great waves of innovation have happened every 50 years or so, back in the 1870s, 90s, 1840s, and all, and the phenomena are very similar. Now, that's a book that hardly anyone has ever heard of, let alone read. And so discovering these gems and saying, look, we can learn a huge amount from books like that, rather than focusing simply on books which have a huge amount of publicity and which are being talked about in the press, that some of these gems are much more valuable.
Okay, well, I agree to that. I love picking up these gems, so you just gave me one or two more. What is a last book that you would offer us to read in 2014 that we really shouldn't miss?
Well, I love Carlota Perez's book, but I do think these two recent books that I talked about, The Big Bang Disruption and the New Killer Apps, that I reviewed in my column in the last couple of articles, those are two books about the huge scale of the transformation that's happening. And I think they are valuable contributions in terms of understanding the scale of it, the pace of it, and the disruption of it, that the existing businesses that think they can just carry on doing the same old thing. I mean, when you read what's happened in those industries discussed in those books. I mean, I think a real wake-up call. So those are two books that I really liked.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks for the tip. And speaking of disruptions, I'm going to disrupt our interview here because we are past our 15 minutes already. One last question. Are you planning another book in the future, Steve?
I'm always planning another book in the future.
Good. Any insights on what it will be about?
Well, I'm really trying to collect these writings. I have a couple of thousand pages on my Forbes column, and it's difficult for people to find all the pieces and see how they fit together. So assembling that and showing, having the most insightful of those pieces in a easily accessible and integrated format would be the gist of it.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to that because I really enjoyed the Radical Management book. So thanks for that. Here's your kudo card. I will show it to you. Thank you, Steve, for all your hard work on your book and your blog and joining me here for this video interview. And I hope to see you again at a conference someday this year.
Our paths will cross again, I'm sure. And thanks very much for the interview. It was real fun being with you again.
Good. Thank you very much for joining, and thanks everyone for watching. This was Jurgen Appelo with episode 8 already of 15 minutes on air, and hopefully I will see you again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best.